Coming up tonight, Bahamas Air urged to operate within its means, plus an explanation for why those COVID-19 travel cards were scrapped. Meanwhile, a Hurricane Dorian survivor opens up about the trauma she faced, and a Bahamas-born rocket engineer helps to make history.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, Minister of Tourism and Aviation Dionisio de Aguilar is insisting Bahamas Air will have to live within its means as the Minister administration seeks to cut costs and clamp down on subsidizing state-owned enterprises. Jasmine Brown reports.
I've charged the chairman and the board of Bahamas Air to live within their means. In the budget allocation that was just recently laid in Parliament by the Minister of Finance, $19 million was allocated as a subvention to Bahamas Air. And given our pressing revenue issues and our projected $1.3 billion deficit, Bahamas Air is being charged to live within that $19 million subvention or support from the Bahamian taxpayer. So I've asked the management to devise a plan to live within that means.
During a press conference on Thursday, Bahamas Air executives outlined the dire situation that is being faced by the national flag carrier. While Bahamas Air will begin a phased ramp-up of its flight services based on demand, officials say they have suffered some $20 million in losses due to a combination of Hurricane Dorian and COVID-19. $10.5 million of that was lost between March and June. De Aguilar says while it has no doubt been a rough year for Bahamas Air, the airline does not plan on letting go any of its 595 employees.
Of course, Bahamas Air has made no move to downsize its staff or reduce its cost structure. So it's losing, I think, $2 to $3 million a month in this state of lockdown. So we're very anxious for it to get back up and running to mitigate the need for the Treasury to assist in even a greater amount than it typically does towards the operations of Bahamas Air.
De Aguilar says as a result, the airline now has to find other ways to cut costs.
A challenge has gone out from the Ministry of Finance that the state-owned enterprises, their call on the state must be reduced. And so it's certainly the view of the Ministry of Finance that these state-owned enterprises start to charge more in line with its costs. So that will probably be an area of enormous focus by the management of Bahamas Air and other state-owned enterprises to see how best to realign its pricing strategy to mitigate its losses and to allow it to draw less from the Bahamian taxpayer.
With the airline suffering major losses in recent months, he says there is at least one bright side. That is the resumption of domestic commercial flights next week and international flights by July 1st.
And obviously, if your planes are not moving, you're not clocking hours on it. The required maintenance, therefore, can not come as often and regularly as it is required. But no, it's very vexing. It's as you see, most airlines around the world have furloughed planes, furloughed staff, downsized. But until the government of the Bahamas changes its view on that, the taxpayer will have to pick up the cost.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Thanks, Jasmine. Well, following the announcement by the Office of the Prime Minister that the COVID-19 travel authorization cards have been scrapped, Deputy Chief Medical Officer Dr. DeLon Brennan explained that the current low level of transmission, coupled with the realization that the process was delaying travel, contributed to that decision. Additionally, he said there was an overwhelming number of persons applying to travel.
But when it came to the overwhelming number of people who were applying to travel, most of them were being allowed to go, and having to go through the travel authorization process in the end was only holding them up in the timing that they'd be able to go. So it was felt as though we would be safe, especially in the low level of transmission that's currently happening in the Bahamas, opening up domestic travel without requiring further hurdles for people to have to go through.
A statement Sunday explained that passengers traveling from islands with confirmed COVID-19 cases will instead be required to fill out a travel form and health form when they check in for travel. The forms will be used to collect contact information and a COVID-19 risk assessment for health officials. Brennan added most persons who applied to travel were approved. However, in the event of a second wave of the virus, Brennan said the authorization card could be reintroduced.
Public health measures that we put in place originally that helped us to control transmission within our community would definitely be considered for reintroduction if we saw that there was community transmission.
A Hurricane Dorian survivor is opening up about the lingering psychological trauma that exists since the storm passed. The woman says life has been tough since the storm, and the pandemic has only deepened her uncertainty.
42-year-old Audrey Tyne still finds it difficult to sleep.
Sleep is not easy. It's not consistent for me.
Haunted by Dorian's ferocious winds and deadly impact, Tyne says she and her daughter had to see a psychologist after the storm. She recalls a tragic story, learning that her neighbor was killed during the killer hurricane.
His house crumbled on him. It was a concrete house. And he died like before the worst part of the hurricane reached.
The 2020 hurricane season got underway days ago on June 1st. U.S. experts are predicting 13 to 19 named storms. Dorian, a deadly Category 5 storm, was the strongest on record to hit the Bahamas. It has left many of its survivors traumatized. Tyne is no exception.
And right now, like how it's breezy today, I can't even close my eyes because every time I hear the wind howl, my heart starts racing. And it takes like days for that to stop.
Dorian tormented Abaco and Grand Bahama for more than 3 days in early September. It killed at least 76 people and caused an estimated $3.5 billion in damage and losses. With another hurricane season upon us, the woman is nervous.
Nothing in this world could have prepared anybody for what happened with Dorian. And it seems to me that hurricanes are getting worse every year. So no, I don't think the Bahamas, Abaco, Grand Bahama in particular, they're not ready. The buildings are condemned, what's left there. So they're still standing, but you can't go in them because they're structurally damaged, they're weak. No, not ready at all.
Tynes is living in New Providence for now and says finding work is tough. The pandemic has only made things more difficult. Despite her uncertainty and fear, the former tourism worker says she is staying optimistic.
I have to keep praying. I have to, rely on my faith, and I know eventually work will come.
As the country celebrates Labor Day, Bahamas Financial Services Union President Teresa Mortimer hit out at senators who got into a heated row in the Senate last week. Bethany McDermott reports.
Bahamas Financial Services Union President Teresa Mortimer says it was the trade union movement that decided not to have a Labor Day parade this year and not the government.
The trade union leaders, we agreed there will be no march due to the COVID-19 and the social distancing and everything that the country is doing.
However, on Thursday, Trade Union Congress President Obie Ferguson told reporters they would have been happy with a motorcade, adding that his application to have some sort of Labor Day celebration was denied by the Commissioner of Police. A heated row erupted in the Senate last week between Attorney General Carl Bethel and Leader of Opposition Business Fred Mitchell over the cancellation of the Labor Day parade. She lamented their behavior, calling it silly.
Which I thought was so silly because, as trade union leaders, we have the power. We set our pace, we set our environment, the things that we want to do. So why are you arguing in Senate about something that affects the trade union movement? That's not your concern. You understand? And so it came off rather silly.
Mortimer added that not having a parade has no effect on unionists. She also hit out at political parties, charging that Labor Day is not for politics.
The PLP need not have a parade on Labor Day. What the PLP need to do, encourage the workers. Listen, we're going to get some T-shirts. It don't have to say no union, It could say Happy Labor Day. Let's find a group, let's march with that group. It ain't about politicizing, it ain't election. Throughout that election.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Thanks, Bethany. Still to come on Our News. The DPM says the breakdown of government borrowing is yet to be determined. And a psychologist calls for a discussion on race. That's coming up when our news returns.
Loved bonus data? Well, guess what? There's more. Alive's now giving you cash back. Customers making Freedom 12 plan purchases get $2 cash back. Freedom 25 or 35 plan purchases get $3 cash back. And all Liberty plan purchases get $4 cash back. Top up via your My Alive app today and enjoy more with Alive for less. Alive, we got you.
Believe in best.
Hear that? If you listen closely, you can hear the heartbeat of a nation. That unique sound of a great country pounding with colorful history, a rich culture, and unwavering ambition. When you look around, you recognize its pulse. The people who love to celebrate, who identify with triumph, a people who know how to be our brother's keeper. Commonwealth Bank, built by Bahamians, here for Bahamians, Bahamians helping Bahamians.
Making the world's most tender, juicy fried chicken requires the highest quality ingredients. Our team of cooks start with KFC's secret recipe of 11 herbs and spices and fresh chicken every day. Hand-breaded and cooked to golden perfection, ensuring that KFC's chicken is hot and crispy every time.
KFC delivery is available through the Craven app or visit your nearest KFC location for drive-thru or carry-out.
KFC Nassau.
COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a new coronavirus introduced to humans for the first time. It is spread from person to person, mainly through the droplets produced when an infected person speaks, coughs, or sneezes. These droplets can land in the mouths or noses of people who are nearby. These droplets are too heavy to travel far in the air. They only travel approximately 1 meter and quickly settle on surfaces. This is the reason person-to-person spread is happening mainly between close contacts. The exact time that the virus can survive on surfaces is not yet known. So it is wise to clean surfaces regularly, particularly in the vicinity of people infected with COVID-19. Hands touch many surfaces, which can be contaminated with the virus. You should therefore avoid touching your eyes, nose, or mouth, since contaminated hands can transfer the virus from the surface to yourself. When coughing or sneezing, cover your mouth and nose with the bend of your elbow or use a disposable tissue. If a tissue is used, discard it immediately into a closed bin. The most effective way to prevent the spread of the new coronavirus is to clean your hands frequently with an alcohol-based hand rub or soap and water. This will eliminate the virus if it is on your hands. Stay healthy and prevent the spread of COVID-19.
The Ministry of Finance has not determined the source which will provide the funds needed for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. The government intends to borrow $1.3 billion, but has yet to determine the breakdown of the borrowing.
We have not determined the breakdown of the borrowing yet, whether how much we will borrow in foreign currency versus domestic currency, and what those sources may be in terms of whether we go to the multilaterals, whether we go to the private banking institutions, or whether we go out for a bond offering. We haven't decided on that yet, on that mix. That'll be the job for us once we get this resolution done through the summer, looking into the fall.
Turnquest urged residents who are following the budget communication not to confuse funds from the previous budget cycle.
The $250 that we're getting from the IMF is in this current fiscal year. That is the balance of the borrowing authority that we had on the 2019-2020 budget. Right? So that'll all be included in this current year. And so we're moving now into the new fiscal year come July 1, when we will be looking at this 1.3 borrowing resolution.
With protests ongoing in the United States over the death of black people at the hands of police, the issue is being felt here in the Bahamas as well. Harrison Thompson, a cognitive behavioral therapist, said now is the time for the Bahamas to have a conversation on racism, colorism, and classism.
These are so many different things: classism, racism, prejudice. Right now, globally, the world is being sensitized to the injustices of what happened in North America with George Floyd. We know that he is not the first, we know that he is not the last, but his instance was so significant because it was recorded, especially at a time when we are in a global pandemic with COVID-19. People were kind of looking for things to kind of get involved in again, right? And it just so happens that this particular race issue came at the right time when people were hungry for change, when people were beginning to get used to a new norm.
Just this week, a white Bahamian girl had her acceptance to an American college rescinded after a social media post where she reportedly used the N-word. Thompson said with the issue of race at the forefront, the country should look at having an open and honest conversation.
There are too many things that we hide under the tradition of, irresponsibility and non-responsiveness. Things that often cause us to drop the ball on very important conversations. Now is the time for all of us, while the sensitivity is high, to re-engage with things that we never thought we needed to reevaluate our own definitions of what we think racism is and colorism, and to really maybe pay attention to some of our own instances of racism in this country. Going back as far as school, the workplace, socially, I think this is an opportune time for us to really do some forward thinking and to actually make some progress in moving these types of conversations forward.
As for the topic of racism, Thompson says while the discussion must be had, he doesn't see it as something that can be eradicated completely.
I don't think that racism is something that we can completely eradicate. I think there is just those who choose to see it and those who choose to ignore it. We are very tolerant people in that there's not a lot of things that's going to get us up out of our chair. And I think because of that disposition that we have as Bahamians, we tend to look in the opposite direction. And looking in the opposite direction does not mean that something does not exist.
When our news comes back from the break, a Bahamas-born NASA engineer helps the agency make history. We have the details when we come back.
Cancer is smart. It pushes us. We push back, challenging conventional thinking, finding smarter solutions. That's what makes Cancer Treatment Centers of America one of the leaders in precision cancer treatment, using tools like advanced genomic testing and immunotherapy to bring more options to our patients. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. We're not just fighting cancer anymore. We're outsmarting it. Visit cancercenter.com/outsmart to learn more.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
Welcome back. A Bahamas-born rocket engineer played a crucial role in the recent SpaceX launch. The man says his Bahamian roots played a major role in getting him to NASA.
It was an historic launch.
America has launched.
And it had the help of a man born right here in the Bahamas.
I was born in the Bahamas, moved to the U.S. when I was younger. I do work for NASA.
NASA launched its first rocket into space in 9 years on Saturday. Dr. Denton Gibson was the lead engineer on the launch that sent 2 astronauts to the International Space Station.
Me and my team was heavily involved with making sure the rocket was built correctly, it was designed correctly, it was tested correctly, and making sure everything was working properly up until the day of launch and through launch.
It's a risky business that the engineer and father of one says comes with a lot of pressure.
So it's not as if you in a car and you assemble a car for the first time and then you drive it down the street. If it doesn't work, you break down, you get the tow truck, you pull it back in the garage and you fix it. With a rocket, you only have one shot.
Gibson was born in the Bahamas and attended St. Bede's Primary School before he moved away at age 7. Still, he says he has stayed in close contact with family here in the country.
I still have a lot of my siblings still in the Bahamas. And I have a ton of aunts, uncles, cousins. Being from NASA helps me stay grounded, knowing where I came from and what I could always go back to, which is, like I said, NASA is always home to me, even though I've been off the island for quite some time.
Gibson's experience with NASA spans over the past 16 years and includes stints working in the U.S. Senate helping draft space legislation. The next step for him?
This mission this past weekend was successful, but there's many more to go. We have a lot more missions coming up. Again, there's going to be more missions to the space station, more astronauts being launched, but we also have a lot of science missions coming up that we have to get ready for. And in some respects, some of the science missions are a lot more complicated than some of the just transporting people to the space station. So.
And what's the NASA engineer's message to young Bahamians hoping to get into STEM careers?
I would tell them, don't underestimate how important school is, high school is. It may seem like it's meaningless or you're not going to get anything out of it right now or as you're going through it, but it will pay off in the end.
A quick check on sports with Marcellus Hall is up next.
Loved bonus data? Well, guess what? There's more. Alive's now giving you cash back. Customers making Freedom 12 plan purchases get $2 cash back. Freedom 25 or 35 plan purchases get $3 cash back. And all Liberty plan purchases get $4 cash back. Top up via your My Alive app today and enjoy more with Alive for less. Alive, we got you.
Believe in best.
Rev is making it easier for you to complete all your lockdown errands in one trip. You can now pay your Rev bill at all participating Solomon's locations, including the Yamacraw, Old Trail, and Lucaya Freeport locations, effective Thursday, April 23rd, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and thereafter, Monday to Saturday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So shop for those much-needed groceries and pay your bill at the same time, all the convenience in one location. Cash payments accepted. Rev, you and us together.
Welcome to Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, open 24 hours a day, ensuring both our inpatients and the general public have access to a full-service pharmacy whenever they need it most.
At Doctors Hospital, we care about making you feel safe and at home. We know our way around a counter with our team of highly trained, knowledgeable pharmacists available 24 hours a day. We offer a complete range of pharmacy services to all our patients. The pharmacy at Doctors Hospital, open 24 hours a day.
Hi, my name is Gregory Johnson, and I'm an installation supervisor at Rev. Today we are going to show you how to install your cable box. Step 1. Connect the white main coaxial cable provided to the input of your cable box. Step 2. Use the provided HDMI or RG6 cable to connect your television. Step 3. Connect the cable box to an electrical outlet using the power adapter provided. Step 4. Check for a lit light on your cable box. This will indicate that your box is on. Step 5. Place your television on the correct source.
And finally, step 6. Wait 2 minutes for your box to initialize, and that's it. If you're not getting a television signal or the picture is not received, please contact our customer care agents via live chat on our website or WhatsApp for further assistance. That's a wrap. You have completed installing your cable set-top box, and now you can watch your favorite shows and movies provided by Rev. Rev, you and us together.
Thanks for watching our news, everybody. Now we turn to Marcellus Hall with a quick check on sports.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, we told you about one of our student athletes who had an opportunity to get a scholarship to Wagner University, a Division I school for water polo. Turns out he's not the only one from the Bahamas national team program. Yet another young man on his way to college as well. Here's his story. Also joining the growing list of youngsters headed to college to play water polo is Alex Turnquest. He'll be headed to Connecticut. He says he's surprised at how much he was able to accomplish through the sport.
When I first joined water polo, it was around 6 years ago, so I had no idea that I could end up over here. I wasn't even thinking about that. So it's kind of surprising that we could take it all this way.
Turnquest saying water polo has opened numerous doors to see the world.
We've gone to like a lot of places over the Caribbean, over the world. So that's been really fun and interesting. Like, you don't expect it whenever you come to like this pool and practice, that you could end up like in different countries playing with people you may never meet otherwise.
Meanwhile, his coach, Coach Borbley, says, you know what? Hard work pays off. In fact, he says this is really what they had hoped for all along.
All that work, all that relationship, all that networking, all that traveling, what we did to expose these players to a higher level of water polo is now paying off. In my mind, I always wanted to have exceptional water polo, and I always wanted to establish a so-called Bahamian or Caribbean water polo. So when these guys shows up, and the next generation next year shows up at colleges, they already know, these guys from that Bahamian school, they in.
So more Bahamians getting opportunities to continue their education through sports. Meanwhile, so much more to come. I'm Marcellus Hall for our news.
It's time now for a check on your weather forecast. Thank you for joining us for our news tonight. To catch our news on the go, download the Rev Go Play app. On behalf of the entire news team, I'm Jared Higgs. Have a beautiful evening, Bahamas.